everyone, and you are very welcome to episode 3 of the South Tip Arts podcast. My name is Eamonn and I'll be your host. In this episode, we'll be having a chat with Tony Crosse, who's one of our most popular tutors here at the centre, and I had a chat to Tony and some of his lovely students earlier in the week. We'll also be meeting the centre's new Director Helena Tobin and having a chat with her about her vision for the centre in the future. But first, let's revisit our current exhibition, which is Transition, curated from the Arts Council collection by the 5th year students of Loreto Secondary School, Clonmel. The exhibition was officially opened by Eamonn Maxwell, who's head of collections at the Arts Council, and he had some glowing things to say about the girls. I'd like to take this opportunity to say well done to them all again, and indeed to Molly and Anne-Marie, and our very own Tim for his Trojan work during the installation. The girls produced their own gallery guide, which is available to listen to as you tour around the exhibition. I'd seriously urge anybody to do that because it really gives a great insight into the motivations of the girls and their choices. You can also listen back to episode 2 of the South Tip Arts podcast for more details on this exhibition. It runs until May the 18th. Let's have a listen to some of what Eamonn Maxwell had to say at the opening of Transition.
You're all very welcome. So my name is Eamonn Maxwell and I'm the Collection Advisor to the Arts Council of Ireland. This process came about through a meeting I had with Cliona, former director here, and Melanie Scott, who's the Arts Officer for Tipperary. And during the meeting came up this idea of, would you let some school children have a go at your collection? And I was like, bring it on. Want more of that, please. So through the collaboration, we worked with the Loreto School. And the idea being that we let the classroom in the Loreto School have sort of free range of the collection. So this is a collection of work that, is dates from 1940 is the earliest work of art, right up to something that's only been bought very recently. So like Dragana's work is only a few months old. So they were able to access the full breadth of the collection. And we didn't put any parameters on it. We said you can have whatever you want. Initially, we were going to look at 500 works, but myself and Molly, who is the artist facilitator, thought that's a bit too daunting. So we restricted them to say, these are sort of the kind of works you think might be interested in. And aside from that, we then stepped back and said, on you go, do whatever you need to do. Myself and Molly Ann had a few questions about specific works, and in the end, the work you see here was chosen exclusively by the kids in the school. And that's really important, that it's not dictated to by the Arts Council, this is what you're meant to have and do. We're saying to all of you, you pick the work that you want. Now, interestingly, there's only one man in the show. Girl power. I kind of feel a bit sorry for him, he's stuck on a pedestal over there. But it's not a woman, so they're all women in the show. But I think that's really, really interesting that you have a group of 15 students, all female, looking at sort of Irish contemporary art and the things that artists are interested in, and settling upon this show of primarily female artists. I don't think it was an obvious intention by the selectors, it's just one of those things that happened. And that demonstrates as well the importance of supporting gender equality in any kind of collection like this. And that's something myself and my colleagues work really hard to try and do. I'm not going to talk about all the works because we'd be here for hours. There's a few specific ones I'm going to talk about. So this one is quite a powerful, arresting image. This is an artist called Amanda Coogan, who is a performance artist. So that means that she normally works in gallery spaces or theatres or art venues and does sort of things that are performed rather than anything that's kind of static on a wall. But it's always been this conversation we've had about how do you acquire the work of performance artists, because you can't put a person in a box in a storeroom because that'll be murder. But I think longer term is something that we have to seriously think about in terms of how do we represent the reality of art practice now. So for this, it's a great image of just showing Amanda's kind of attitude of this kind of, very ballsy, upfront artist. But actually, she's one of the warmest, most humorous, most inviting people you could ever work with. And we're lucky that last year she sat in the selection panel to help us buy work. So Amanda helped buy that work. So there's a really nice symbiosis between these two works. So this work is work by an artist called Dragana Jurzic, who, as you'll hear from her name, is not from Ireland initially. She's from the former Yugoslavia. Has lived in Ireland for about 10 years. And this project she did a couple of years ago, and it's called 100 Muses. And this is where she asked 100 of her friends who worked in the creative industries, so artists, curators, actors, performers, to perform to the camera with this mask to sort of obliterate their identity. But apart from that, they're all naked. What's also important about this work was Durgana put pieces of this work on Instagram last summer, and it got censored by Instagram, and her
and Facebook.
Well, on Facebook, yeah. And her account got taken down, and all her content got taken away. So as an artist who looks and shares all her work online, that was quite drastic. So we made a decision that we had to support the freedom of expression, both in terms of her as an artist being able to express her concept, but also this idea that no one can censor art. It's not. We won't stand over that. So this is a very important piece. Some people may find it provocative or shocking or controversial. I don't think it is. I think it's very much just about female identity in the times that we live in. So I think it's a brilliant exhibition. I think the students have all done an amazing job. I think it's a really, really incredible work, and the way you put it together, for me, is really fresh and exciting. And I think if any of you want a career in curating, definitely got one. I'll just leave. I think lastly, I want to say a big round of applause to all the students, because I think you did a brilliant job. There's a podcast as well, and a gallery tour as well. So that's really great. So the students have talked about their individual ideas around this work and how you might sort of enjoy it. So enjoy the show, and again, thank you all for coming, and thank you all for making it.
Helena Tobin is the new director of South Tip Art Centre, and during the week I got to meet Helena and have a chat with her about her plans and her vision for the Art Centre.
My name is Helena Tobin. I'm a local lass as such. I'm from Ballyneal, which is just near Carrick-on-Shore for anyone who doesn't know. So I was always arty. I don't remember ever not being arty. Arty is a terrible phrase to use, but always drawing, making things out of nothing. That continued throughout all of my education. And I suppose I was lucky in that at a secondary level I had a teacher that was very supportive of anyone who had artistic ability. So it wasn't a case of, no, don't bother with that, you're not going to ever do anything with it, get yourself a real career. Like, I was never told that. I kind of wish I had been, but I was never told that. I was very much encouraged, but obviously the encouragement was more like, do it and then become a teacher. Yeah, so I left Greenhill and went straight into art college in the Crawford in Cork, and spent 4 years there. I loved it. I loved every moment in the Crawford. Anytime I ever go back there for anything, I feel terribly nostalgic. I'm like, I just want to be here forever. So 4 years of that, and left, got a 1 year residency in the Backwater Artist Studios as a result of my degree show.
So did you do print?
No, I did painting.
Okay.
Yeah, I did painting. Like, I was lucky when I left college, I went straight into work. I started working in the Fenton Art Gallery, which was right around the corner from the Crawford. Started out the summer after I finished, just pretty much work experience. They needed someone. One of the tutors was friendly with Nuala, who ran the gallery, and said, I have someone who might be good, and said it to me, and I said, okay, yeah, I'll do it. And I was there for like 7 years in the end. I was there until we actually closed the doors.
Lovely. It was
Yeah. And I suppose my practice kind of suffered, but I learned so much. And that was one of the best jobs I've ever had. And I'm still really close with both Nuala and Ita that I worked with, because we were basically 3 girls in a gallery, running the show. And we worked together the whole time. Other people came and went, but we were there consistently for those 7 years. And I suppose you can't help but be close with people that you work with that closely for that length of time, And the good thing about that was you did a bit of everything. It wasn't like if you had been working in maybe a bigger institution like IMA or a National Gallery or something like that, the roles are very defined and very specific. Whereas because it was a commercial gallery and because there was literally the director and 2 staff with some help, that meant that you did everything from pouring the wine at the opening night to stuffing envelopes with invites, to maybe dealing with logistics, dealing with PR, writing out press releases.
But just even you got to see how a business
Yeah, went the whole thing, doing invoices, like you did.
Business.
Yeah, sales, everything. Dealing with clients, dealing with artists, figuring out what needs to be done. It was, I suppose, it was really into maybe early 2009 that it became really apparent quite quickly, because in a commercial gallery, people often forget, I'd say unless you're a really, really well-established gallery and you've got very wealthy clients in your back pocket, the recession hit you. Like, an awful lot of people closed, and you just couldn't, you didn't have the cash flow sitting in the bank, and you just didn't have it. So it became quite quickly, it became apparent that it was going to have to, we were going to have to close. At that point then I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? You know? So I just said, right, I went straight from college to work. I'm going away for a year. So I headed off at the end of 2009 and headed off to Canada. I went to Vancouver for a year and just lived there and soaked up a different city and different kind of, I suppose, a way of life and things like that. And then when I came back, I was here in Tip, and my dad was unwell at the time. I was taking care of him, and I kind of decided then, once he was out of the woods at that time, I decided I want to do my master's. I'd always wanted to. I love education. The MA, the MAP MA that was in, it's now in Cork, that was its first year. So I'd applied to that, and I also applied to Mavis, which was the MA in Visual Art Practices out of IDT. And a lot of artists that I kind of liked or worked with or respected, a number of them had seemed to have done this. And it was full-time, but it was more open, I felt, than the other courses at the time, because it had a curation aspect to it and a writing. So you had artists, curators and art writers on the course. And that appealed to me because of my gallery background. I thought, well, yes, I'm going in as an artist for my practice, but it sounded like for me that that course would allow me to maybe utilise my curatorial background as well, and maybe kind of play with that. So I got accepted and I started that in February 2012, and that took 2 years, and that was like very, very tough, rigorous, very academic as well. Like, you know, there was a lot of learning, but brilliant. Like, it just kind of pushed your brain and your thinking processes onto a whole different level. And it also allowed me to kind of engage with an art scene in Dublin, which I wouldn't have had much access with, bar just, you know, because I spent 10 years in Cork. So it kind of gave me a new pool. I was kind of going around to galleries more. I was kind of getting back into that. And during that time, I and a colleague of mine and a few others on the course kind of formed a collective, and we set up Citation, which was this kind of project space collective, and we got a space right around the corner from the lab in Dublin 1, the Dublin City Art Gallery. So we had that for I think 6 months at the beginning, and we ran events and we had exhibitions. It was a great place to just try things out, and, you know, if there was stuff that we were doing for our own practice, it was a space where people could do things like that as well. And after that time, then we went on and we kind of took a plunge and went and took on a rented old property, which would be kind of at the back of the Smithfield markets there, the fruit markets. And we were like, great, this is going to go and it's going to be amazing. But again, you know, the energy was high, the reality was a little different. You're paying rents then, and rates came involved, and then trying to get a non-profit status when you didn't really exist, you know, in the real world, but you did because you had a bank account. Like, there's all these things, and trying to get funding was the thing that became, I suppose, our Achilles heel, because we didn't have the time and the money and the kitty, because it was all our own money and our own resources, which meant we were literally just renting the space out for people to try things and to experiment, and then that would go into paying the rent. It was really just like kind of, you know, in and out, just barely keeping it going. And as well as that, while kind of finishing the MA and everything, it just became a lot of work, because we were all on the same MA, and then we were all trying to give time, and some people just couldn't, and some people decided it wasn't for them anymore, and it just became one of those things where without funding it wasn't sustainable. So, but it lasted for about 2 years, which
massive
is really
learning experience.
Yeah,
that as well.
Yeah, huge. At the end of the day, it comes down to just you, in order to operate for any space or artist studios or a person who's looking for funding.
There's an awful lot of bureaucracy and red tape.
You kind of have to have different heads. You kind of have to have focused admin, form-filling outable head, budget, number crunching. You know, you kind of almost have to be administrator, slightly pretend you're a civil servant. Imagine you're working in an office. And like, I know people who spend, like professional artists that are operating and doing really well, who don't have a really good paid job that supports them. They are spending a huge percentage of their weekly time working, applying for funding, or, you know, keeping this paperwork up. And even if you get funding, you have to report back. You know, you have to, you know, say what you used it for and how it was used and how. And then if you're dealing with public sculpture or you're dealing with any kind of public things like that, you have to then, there's all health and safety, there's a whole other thing. So, you know, there's very few artists that nowadays operate where they go into their studio, close the door, paint for 8 hours and just live off the grid and live in this lovely romanticised land that we would all as artists love to operate.
Your paintings.
Yeah, where you sell your paintings, you don't have to worry about money, and you own your own house, and you don't have to worry about rent, and your studio's heated, and you know, all these things. And I'm not kind of trying to go, oh, you know, artists are so hard done by, but it is anyone who chooses to either work in the arts or work as an artist, whether it's in an institutional level, whether you become a curator or running a space or an administrator, like anything like that, working in theatre, anything involving the arts, unless you're at the top end of working for the Arts Council, everything is less paid than other sectors. It's just lower paid. You're not going to get paid for your time.
Yeah.
We never get paid for our time.
Yeah.
You just don't. I only have 8 hours a week to do this.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing.
Yeah, and
you're
it's
expected to do a lot.
Yeah, like it's very, like the specific remit is like artistic director, specifically to make sure that the programme that is already in place, the bits of it that are in place up till the end of the year that Clean has already put in place, and anything in next year that might get funding, that I fulfill those, and then that I do my own programming for the rest of for any gaps this year and for the rest of next year. And that also includes funding and budgets and getting money in and things like that. So that's, in my mind, that is at least 16 to 20 hour week job, but I have to try and do it in 8. So I suppose I'm trying to manage my own expectations as well as everybody else's, because I suppose I'd be the kind of person that I wouldn't take something on unless I knew I could do it to the best of my ability. Like I'd kind of go, nah, I'm not going to do it because it's not the right time, or I don't feel I have the skill set to offer that will do it properly. And I suppose I want to make sure that I want to make sure that I can do the best job possible with the time that I have, and that I can in some way, I suppose, push the boundaries for myself and for the institution as best as I can. I suppose we'll just have to see how it goes. It's a building that can be a hub and should be a hub, and people should be able to come in whenever they want. They should be able to see interesting exhibitions, whether it's downstairs in the main space, like interesting works by artists from all over Ireland, like now with the Arts Council collection, like these are works that you wouldn't get to see in Clonmel normally, you know, or whether it's upstairs where you get to see a local artist who just has the opportunity to put their work on a wall and maybe sell some pieces and kind of have, or, you know, just use that space that you can put your work in, even if it's just for you as an artist to see it up on a wall for a week, just to get some feedback in your own head and see what's available or possible. And then through other things like activities and classes and workshops and screenings, recitals, you know, like I know Piano Day happened, piano in the art space, come in and just listen to some music. You know, this is what the Arts Centre needs to do and needs to keep doing. But there's also that level of ambition and going, yeah, cram it full of stuff, keep it really active, keep it really busy. But, you know, there has to be funding for that. Every project has to have some kind of funding behind it, especially if it involves expenses, you know. You don't want to be in a situation where in the main space you're asking an artist to put on a solo show and they get nothing for it. You know, you just can't. I don't think it's right to do that. I don't think it's ethically right. I think it's, you know, really just asking for too much, unless you've got something amazing you can offer them in return that is more than exposure, a benefit in kind of somewhat. But I do think like the residency programs and things like that are going on, where you get time to work on your work and then maybe you can put on your work, or you have some kind of outlet for your work. Those are things are, you know, they really need to be fostered, and they need to be, I think they're exceptionally supportive for artists, and they make people feel like they're not being exploited. And I think the funding coming from the local authority or the Arts Council for any of those things, I think it's really vital, and really important, because otherwise you're just stopping people in their tracks. You're saying we don't value artists. You're saying we don't value the arts at all. We don't value your work. Go off and get a real job. But if all the artists did that in the world, we'd have no music. We'd have no concerts to go to. We'd have nothing interesting to look at, except maybe some architecture. But where would the architects get the inspiration from? I just think that an art education is one of the best educations you could ever have. Even if it's just at a primary level, you never take it further and all you do is go to galleries like once a month. Because if you see work that makes you see something from a different viewpoint, whether you see work made by an asylum seeker, whether you see work made by a traveller, whether you see a work made by your neighbour, you know, a woman with cancer, a kid down the road, a professional artist who's got exhibitions all over the globe. It doesn't matter who makes the work. It's like if you see it and it says something to you and it makes you see the world from a different viewpoint, that should be like giving you goosebumps. You know, like Clonmel's a really big town and it services such a large catchment area as well. And you see, we're so close to Kilkenny on one side, we're not that far from Cork or Limerick, Waterford. You know, like there's cities all around us and there's works going on there. Like, you know, you've got the Amazing Space in Carlow, you've got the Butler in Kilkenny, then you've got like Ormerson House and like the City Gallery in Limerick and others. You've got Cork, we could go on with those as well. And even locally, Thurles, Nina. But there needs to be, the art centre is here for the immediate area, but should reach out to all of those areas. Like people should be coming from those areas to see what's going on here, as well as the local community. And we should be reflecting what's going on locally, nationally, within the arts, within the globe. Like it has to be like a little Russian doll, I think. You know, that you kind of, you start in the middle and then it just goes out, or you start at the outside and it goes in. That there's different layers and facets. And yes, it's hard to be all things to all people. Realistically speaking, in order to get more funding, you have to raise your profile. And that's for anyone, whether you're an individual artist, whether you're a public body, whether you're an art centre, whether you're, you know, a theatre company. It's all about being seen to be doing things that are interesting and have impact.
So have you got some stuff in the pipeline then?
Well, at the moment, I suppose, like, I'm in, week 3? So I'm still in the deep end with armbands on. That's the way I feel. I feel like there's the armbands are deflating a little bit, and I'm like, okay, don't drown, it'll be okay. And so I suppose there's programming already in place for a good bit of this year that I am trying to kind of get my head around and figure out where everything's at and what level of planning is already there, or is there any planning, or is it just it's going to happen, but it's in December, so no planning has been really done yet. So I'm kind of catching up with all that at the moment. I'm kind of interested to see what's going to happen with it. Will be the collaboration between myself and Cliona for the Junction Festival, so Molly Ann King's exhibition, which will be, or installation, or I don't know what it's going to be. That's going to be in the space downstairs for the Junction Festival, and hopefully for a good bit of summer. You know, those kind of exhibitions are quite interesting, or potentially interesting, because you're kind of, here's an artist who's, you know, it's going to be kind of the flagship visual arts part of the Junction Festival programme, and it'll be here in the Arts Centre. And I just think, you know, those kind of things, then there's going to be like, obviously we'll have continued relationships with like Applefest and various things like that, doing things for Bealtaine and other kind of events. And then we've got like Quinn and Og coming up, where we're collaborating with LIT here in Clonmel, and we're going to have a day for kids with just games. So it'll be all around the idea of games, digital games, board games. So it links in with the work that they do there. What I would really hope to do is to, like, I already feel like I've gotten loads of it already, but is to really find out more of those partnerships, like find more people to develop with and like partner with, because those things make things more interesting, and they also potentially reach different audiences. You know, I could sit here and just come up with my own ideas about what shows that go on. That's all going to be my opinion. It might be what I like, but is it going to be what everyone else likes? Or is it going to be something that is going to interact with a group or a community or a disadvantaged area or kids or older people or people who never, like, is it going to engage these people, or is it just going to engage with more people like me? I know how to, like, you know, it'd be very easy to just engage with people like me.
But we already know how to do that.
Yeah, exactly. You know, so, and it's not the Helena Tobin Gallery. Do you know what I mean? Like, where I'm endlessly funded. But also I wouldn't want to do that anyway. because then you're only reaching the same audience. It's like singing to the choir. And an art centre, in my mind, is meant to serve everyone in the community as best as it can. Now, we can't force people to come here. Some people just don't want to engage with arts, and that's absolutely fine. Like, I don't go watch horse racing. It's not because I don't think it's valid. It's not my thing. Everyone's got their thing. But I'd like to hope that we can, through the programme that's already in place and what I will slot in and develop for next year, that we can do projects, exhibitions, events, festivals, whatever, that will hopefully touch across a number of different groups along the spectrum within the Clonmel and surrounding areas, and that hopefully bring people in, that some people come back repeatedly, that some people might only come once and might only come because a certain exhibition is something they might be interested in, and then might not come again until they see something that interests them again. But whatever, that at least we're not working in a vacuum or within a very limited scope of understanding. I think sometimes art centres don't have the luxury to do it, but sometimes you see art spaces and they show the work that the people who already come in want to see. And in some situations, like if you're a commercial gallery, I suppose maybe that's a good thing. Maybe sometimes, because if your buyers like a certain thing, maybe that's what you want to do. But I don't know if it ever really helps develop an idea properly or a space properly. But as an art centre, you have to serve the community as best as possible within your scope, your funding, your ability, and make people think and make people see the people around them that are different, or see themselves differently, or look, if you stood on your head, things would look a bit different, wouldn't they?
Thanks for talking to me anyway. That was really informative and great, and look forward to working with you in the future.
Thanks, Eamonn, looking forward to it too.
Tony Crosse is one of our most popular tutors here at the Art Centre. He teaches painting in acrylics to absolute beginners and indeed to anyone regardless of experience. He's always open to new members in his Friday classes. There's a morning session from 10:30 to 12:30 and an evening session from 7 to 9. I visited Tony's class and had a chat with himself and indeed some of his lovely students, and discovered that it's not all about the painting.
I started teaching art classes maybe in the last 4 or 5 years, and I made a transition myself from doing a lot of online computer design stuff into painting again, because that was my thing in college. I studied painting and some multimedia, so over the years I transitioned back to that again as a balance, and I just grew to love painting again. I kind of almost like fell in love with the process again, because it's connection to doing things physically as opposed to the computer, and then appreciation of the colours. And then you could actually achieve a lot of things with paint that sometimes, you can do it quick with computers as well, but like the reality of it appearing in front of your eyes has a certain quality about it. So, out of that then it just naturally happened that I started to teach it, and I actually love teaching art classes for the social side of it. You see the twinkle in people's eyes when they get to learn how to do things, and the enjoyment of actually coming away with stuff, and more often than not it's actually quite lovely, and then I try and prevent people from getting all critical or getting too serious about it, because I think the more you enjoy it, the better the results as well. Whatever you do is good, because it's all about colour and just enjoying putting things on the paper or on the canvas and appreciating that as an activity. Because I have enough experience now to realise that the more you kind of play with it, it reveals the process itself. So although I do give a kind of structured guidelines and I know what works, there's a practical thing of approach, but I always encourage people just to kind of explore as well, and that kind of nice balance between structure and freedom is great. And week by week people then come in and progress, and some people really get it quick and they stick to it and they enjoy the whole activity and the class itself, and other people then, it's hard to know, some people come then and they like it and then they might get a little bit self-conscious, or they might feel it's a little bit not for them because they haven't got the talent. So I'm always trying to say to people, it's not got to do with talent, it's just got to do with application and enjoyment, because you do get better no matter what you do.
Yeah, they've all said in there that it's not just about coming in and doing the painting, it's about they all go for coffee together.
That's right, yeah.
They have a little gang now.
I didn't even know that was happening, but sometimes it happens. I think that's normal art classes when it comes as a steady group. It becomes an outlet for people, so they come in from wherever they meet. And what's enjoyable about having art classes is that there is a focus thing that you do, that's enjoyable, and it gives them a sense of purpose, but also then they can use it as a kind of social thing. It's a nice activity to bring people together.
And there's a lovely atmosphere.
Lovely atmosphere, yeah. Yeah.
Obviously people are relaxed.
Yeah, I think it's important just to create enjoyment, you know what I mean? I know myself from my own experience, if I'm enjoying what I do and I enjoy being there, that ambience is kind of carried through, and then it's reflected back as
Mary made a lovely point that, like, she said that you have a really good way of, even if she knows she's doing it wrong, that you don't come over and give out to her, that you have this way where you just gently kind of nudge and we'll just have a look at this here. But it's just not everybody can do that, like, so it's...
Yeah, I think it's over the years myself, because when I was starting drawing and painting first, I would have been hypercritical myself. So how I learned to deal with all that is to just see it as once I learned to step out of the way and just get into the doing of it, and to learn through trial and error that I learned there's a softer approach, and then I can appreciate there's no point in being firm or strong. I mean, it's good to have a certain sense of clarity, but you don't have to wave this kind of stick, because it puts too much pressure on people. Do you know what I mean?
It takes the enjoyment out.
It takes the enjoyment, because I think people you see, painting and drawing, it's different from other areas because it's a visual activity, and I think it requires you to kind of settle and to be aware and to be more mindful and just to kind of relax, and it's almost like more meditative. And I think people just get immersed in that space, and the more they get immersed in that space, you could hear a pin drop in the class.
Yeah.
And that's really nice, because people are then completely engrossed. Like even today now, people are lingering after the class and just hanging out and looking at each other's pictures and even painting longer than the class ends.
That's lovely, yeah.
Because it's just natural for people want to linger and hang around that space. And I think all that is kind of a combination of just people learning to kind of come back to themselves in the activity of doing artwork, which is really good. So, they connect with themselves first, and then they connect with the picture. So it is that kind of awareness, mindfulness kind of thing, which is quite good. I encourage that. And then, as I said, you can crack a joke. People can come out with a funny remark, and everybody, the giggles come out because it's kind of fun, and you have a cup of tea. So it's nice to have the combination of like a quite immersive space as well as a bit of fun. It's a good combination. The classes are on every Friday, and so there's beginners and intermediate, but at the moment people are coming into the morning class from 10:30 to 12:30, and even though the class is established, there's still space for people to come in as a beginner or even as an intermediate, and it's similar for the evening class. Now the evening class has started because there was more opportunity for people to come after work. People have different commitments, so it's a different time of the day, and so to fit that demand for the evening class, it's on a Friday, and the class in the evening class is 6 to 8 p.m. So every Friday from 10:30 to 12:30 and 6 p.m. to 8.
This is called the Ball Alley at Knocknamara. It's up in North Tip, not too far from Rear Crosse. And this project was initiated by a relation of mine called Father Rody Kennedy, who grew up near Keeper Hill and became a priest and eventually a Monsignor out in New South Wales. He was very interested in genealogy, so he gave my mother, who we used to visit when he come back to Ireland, he gave her a copy of our family tree.
Very good.
But I learned afterwards that he set this ball alley up to keep the young men of the area amused, but it's falling into disrepair. So I was up there at a Kennedy gathering last July, and we went on a tour of Foyle Duff and all the places where our ancestors would have farmed. And I came across this, I thought, wow, it would be lovely just to paint it. So I have a few little more touches to put to it,
That's looking lovely as well.
Yeah,
those lime greens are gorgeous, aren't they?
I love them, yes. Yeah, and I got that through Lemon Yellow. I purchased a thing of Lemon Yellow last week, and I used it to kind of brighten up the greenery, break in more green there.
You have lovely light in yours as well.
Do you like
lovely.
it?
Yeah.
See, it's like photography, it's all about the light, isn't it?
Isn't it? Yeah.
So,
how long are you coming to the class?
I retired from my job in 2016, and the month after I retired was October 2016, and I took up art in November. I had done art for my junior cert years ago, but gave it up for the leaving cert because I didn't have time to do history of art and that, So I was always interested in art, and I thought it would be a lovely hobby to do during my retirement. So I discovered Tony, and the rest is history.
Oh, isn't that brilliant? I love it.
Yeah, thanks, Eamonn.
God, it's so long since I did any painting. I got to be up here.
Yeah.
And do you spend a lot of time at home?
No, I don't.
You just do it in your class?
In my class.
Yeah.
I don't have time.
Yeah, isn't it amazing? You probably thought you'd have loads of time.
Yeah, I literally don't have time, So I love seascapes. But,
That's lovely. Horses are difficult enough, right?
Yeah. Again, I had to correct this. The knuckle is too prominent there, so I had to come in a little bit,
They're really well done, really well done.
Thanks ever so much. Now
You've loads of things on the go.
I have, and I need Eamonn to finish them.
That's the thing, isn't it?
Finished.
It's great starting them, but
to actually finish them is another thing.
it's not even about that, is it?
No, it's not. It's
Yeah.
about the enjoyment and it's actually a very mindful experience, because when you're painting, you're in the moment, you're in the painting. Everything else is immaterial. You just lose yourself in the moment.
You actually get that when you walk into the room in a way. It's so the meditation of it is, and everybody's in their own little zone. And even I know I'm coming in, sort of interrupting your zone.
No, but it's lovely. It's as I say to Tony every week. Thank you for the therapy, Tony, because to me it's therapy.
It definitely is a kind of therapy, isn't it? Yeah, I totally agree with you. Totally agree with you, Catherine.
Seymour. Mary is doing great work there.
Mary, you're working on your flowers.
I am.
It's absolutely gorgeous. I think it's really lovely.
I only started 3 years ago.
No way.
Yeah. After my husband died, I felt kind of a loss.
Yeah.
So I joined here. Couldn't draw a line. Couldn't put 2 colours together. And I gradually got used to it.
Yeah.
And I think I got more encouragement then as well. I got better. I felt, yeah, I did that. It's not great, but I did it.
Yeah. This one, you must be super happy with this, are you?
I'm very happy with this. It's one of the ones I can say,
I'm getting somewhere here.
Yeah,
you definitely.
And I did one of St. Patrick's Well last year there, and Catherine loved it, didn't you, Catherine? St. Patrick's
And
Well.
you actually framed it then.
I framed it.
It was absolutely gorgeous. Yes.
It's a social thing as well, Catherine.
Yes, I've seen that.
And we never knew one another. Now we go for coffee and we meet.
Oh, that's lovely.
We
that's
text
a big
and
part of it.
Yeah. We're just great friends.
Yeah.
you know, and
And we
then
encourage
at
each other,
Christmas,
don't we?
Catherine had all of us out for lunch, and so I mean, it's just not coming down every Friday and doing your bit and go home. We meet up and we go for coffee later on, and it's a social thing.
Oh, that's
And
so
it's
good. And like that, you were nervous when you came in.
Oh,
you know.
gosh, yeah.
And it's a hard thing to do, step out of your own comfort zone.
I think the first thing I said, I can't, but I'll try my best.
So 3 years you're coming.
Yeah.
Fantastic. That is, like, I'm so impressed.
But
I mean, that's not easy to achieve now.
Yeah.
But the
you know
light
what?
in it is gorgeous.
I'm not here to outdo anyone or to try and go into a corner and say, oh, I'm leaving because everyone's better than me. I'm not like that.
No.
I am me.
It's not about everyone's doing their own thing.
Yeah, and
we're all different.
And that's important. And we all give each other lives, don't we, Catherine?
We say each other. Very honest. We say no.
And I Catherine would say, Tony is just something else. He's never said that's bad. And he always kind of subtly would say, will I just show you? And he teaches. Tony's never finished now with your paint. Sure, he's not, Catherine. Never finished. And the whole, yeah.
That's brilliant. Thanks so much for telling
My
me.
finish now.
He's taken us all out of our comfort zone.
Very much, very much. And I think it's just his attitude and his presence to all of us.
So encouraging.
His fans.
That's great. Thanks a million for talking to me, because I know it's not easy.
Thanks.
And a huge thank you to Tony, and indeed to Catherine Kennedy and to Mary Terry, who you heard there. I really enjoyed talking to them about their experience of the class, and it was a lovely environment to spend some time in. And that's it for episode 3 of the South Tip Arts Podcast. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I've enjoyed making it. If you'd like to get in touch, the email address is southtipArtsPodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget, we're also now on iTunes, so you can search us at South Tip Arts Podcast. Don't forget that email address is southtipArtsPodcast@gmail.com, and we'd absolutely love to hear from you. We'll be back with another episode in 2 weeks, and in the meantime, happy Easter, everybody.